Jackson trying to escape and run for it, and he's got it and more. Lamar Jackson down the sideline. Will they give it to him? They will. Touchdown, Baltimore.
And with 1:17 left to play on Wild Card Weekend, the Hayes in the barn.
Oh my God! I wish you guys could. I wish we had a camera in here so you could see what we're doing. We're just a bunch of clowns in here.
How much fun is that?
All right, welcome on back to another edition of the Baltimore Beatdown podcast. It is Friday, August 13th. My name is Jake Luke. I'm joined on my screen by Spencer Nathaniel Schultz. How's it going, bud?
Doing well. I've been trying to escape Jason and Freddie chasing me around on this Friday the 13th, but hey, the Voodoo Dolls are coming to town. The New Orleans Saints. We've got a great interview with one of our good buddies that we haven't had him on the podcast before. I went on his a while ago. I think you might have as well. And one of our favorite people we have on today that it was a blessing that the Saints are involved in the Ravens schedule this year. So we got to talk to him about it, and it's a good interview.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's Vasilios Nikolau, who used to do some work for WBAL. He has since moved down to New Orleans, actually just recently, a couple months ago. Doing some work for their Fox affiliate down there, doing some production work, all kinds of stuff, and just deeply embedded into the sports scene. So he reached out, talked to me about hopping on, doing a little bit of a preview for the preseason game that we got coming up here. And your Friday the 13th reference actually just completely went over my head because we're recording this on Monday the 9th. A little, peek behind the curtain there for the listeners, but scheduling this one out in advance. We've got another episode that we just put out, so we're deep, just balls deep in the time machine right now because we recorded our Tuesday pod and our Friday on a Monday night, and we got another interview tomorrow night.
Interview. We're interview boys. We did 2 today. We got another one tomorrow. We're interviewing. We're out here, people.
We certainly are. But it was a great chat with Vasilios. Talking, it's I don't want to be like the guy who dives deep into the preseason games and stuff like that. You want to talk about it a little bit for sure, and I think we got into some of that. But we got some other fun stuff too with Vasilios, talking a little bit of New Orleans culture, a little bit of food, stuff like that, and just kind of the general vibe around the Saints right now, as opposed to diving super deep into preseason game one. So I think it was an enjoyable chat on our end.
It was a state of the Saints and a look into what we'll be expecting out of the Saints this year, as well as talking some gumbo, talking some Raisin Canes and some other good stuff on there. So yeah, I mean, I would love to. I'm sure there's other podcasts to listen to that cover the Ravens, and like Jake said, you can get really down in deep to it. But if you listen to this podcast and maybe you're listening to it for the first time, but what we're looking for in this preseason game. We don't need to be yelling it at you from the rooftops. We've talked about it for weeks now, what we're excited to look for. It's James Prochet, it's the rookies, it's the guys from last year, it's the new additions, all that good stuff. So at this point, we're just ready for the damn game. We're ready to have a game played and then be able to go look back and say, wow, this guy performed better than we thought he would. This guy didn't live up to snuff, all that good stuff. But as of now, we got this interview, and we're just chomping at the bit for some football.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. I think it's interesting. I don't know what my viewing. I'm not going to be on the recap pod. Just putting that out there now. I also don't know what my viewing situation is going to be because I'm getting up to Deep Creek for, I don't know if I'd call it a last hurrah for summer, but me and the boys.
How dare you? Summer just started. Summer's not over till August 15th.
Listen, my birthday's in August. I don't want it to be over, but it feels like we kind of never really even got summer in some ways this year. I was saying it the other night, which is a sad thought with the weather being as crappy as it's been. But I don't know. Yeah, getting out to Deep Creek with the fellas, and I don't know what the TV situation is or anything, so I might just be watching the game on tape delay. But I'm sure you've got the recap pod and all that stuff covered.
Yeah, we'll be taking care of it. I'll be deep up in there. I'll see if I can get Vasilios on here or someone like that, perhaps to talk some footy football afterwards, and all that good stuff. But hey, we made it. We're here. It's Friday. There's a preseason game. The season is here. It is football. It is now. I can't wait. It's going to be a blast.
I agree. And I guess without further ado, unless you got anything further, I can throw it over to the interview.
Let's do it.
All right. Well, thank you guys for listening, and thank you for hanging around for the interview. Before I get us out of here, why don't you go and follow me on Twitter at Jake Luke. That is LOUQUE. Spencer is at Ravens for Dummies. That is the number 4 in the middle. Follow the show at Podcast Beatdown. Follow the main account at Be More Beatdown. Follow us on Instagram at Baltimore_Beatdown_podcast, and check out BaltimoreBeatdown.com for all the great written content that we have for you guys on offer as well. And also YouTube.com, Baltimore Beatdown. We're getting a ton of fresh people rolling in, subscribing to watch Spenny's recap videos that he's doing. His live from the castle thing that he's got going on. It's been doing big numbies. He's been doing some great analysis. So check that out if you haven't as well. And yeah, we'll talk to you guys again early next week, or maybe even on Sunday. I don't know what the plans are for the recap pod, but yeah, stay tuned for that, and have yourselves a great weekend and enjoy some Ravens football.
See you.
Arrivederci. All right, we now welcome on a very special guest, as my voice cracks there. And, you know,
all right,
of course, I'm going to have to leave that in. It is Vasilios Nikolau. How's it going, bud?
It's going great, Jake. How are you, man?
Oh, very cool. Very cool.
No, I'm joking. Thank you for having me on, you guys. It's great to be here. It's great to see your smiling faces. How is it back home?
It's very good. And so I guess we should start off right there with you. For the uninitiated of our listeners, I'm sure there's some overlap amongst people who follow us on Twitter, followed your work with BAL. But how about you give the listeners, the fine listeners of this podcast, the rundown on just who you are and you know, explaining our relationship a little bit, I guess.
Sure. Yeah. Hi, I'm Vasilios Nikolau, for those who don't know, and I'm born and raised in Baltimore. I just recently moved down to New Orleans to become the sports producer for Fox 8 Local First. It's a lot of Saints coverage, as you can kind of imagine. And so I spent, like I said, my entire life in Baltimore, worked at WBAL, worked for numerous blogs that I'm not going to name, and got to know Spencer and Jake through podcasting and writing. And now that I'm down here and the Ravens are about to play the Saints, or host the Saints rather, for the #1 preseason game, we're going to break that thing down for you.
Yeah, we are. But I am curious, what has been the, I don't know if I'd say culture shock. I wouldn't presume that on you, but what has been kind of the cultural shift for you moving from Baltimore to New Orleans? What's it been? A couple weeks, couple months at this point, maybe?
Couple months. Yeah. It's the folks down here are really nice, and it's a little bit of a shift from up north. Not that I have
Charm City, baby. Everybody's so nice.
Not that I have anything against my friends up north, but it's that famed Southern hospitality, and so everybody has been really kind to me down here. It's really cool. The amount of sports coverage down here compared to Baltimore is just astronomically different because of LSU, how big the SEC is down here, and everything like that. Even college baseball, it's night and day compared to back home. And so that's one culture shock. And then, of course, the Mother Nature is definitely much more
down on
fickle.
the bayou.
Much different, dude. I had to get a dehumidifier here in my apartment because at any given time,
You're
if
just
it's
drinking
not
your
running,
air, baby.
Exactly. I might as well be swimming if that thing's not on.
So it's you're saying, confirming that it is in fact not a dry heat down there.
It is. Thank you, Jake. Right on the Gulf of Mexico. I can tell you without a doubt, it is not dry heat.
Nice. Well, I mean, I'm curious, man, because New Orleans it's on the bucket list for me. I've got family from down there. What's the food and drink situation been like so far?
How many beignets have you consumed?
I've got a trip scheduled down there for a little bachelor party in November, I want to say. So I'm trying to do some scouting here.
So I'm trying to figure out which question I need to answer first. I think I'm going to go with Spencer's first about the beignets, because the beignets are fantastic. I might have had about like 4 or 5 by now. I'm not going to lie. You'd think I would have had more, but I don't frequent Cafe Du Monde as frequently as a few other people that I know. But the food and drink is super interesting. And I had gumbo for the first time when I was brought down here for my interview with Fox 8, and it was really good shredded chicken and andouille sausage, and it's just like in that little soup with a little lump of rice in the middle. Delicious. And then, of course, for those of us that don't like getting out of our cars to get our food, the fast food situation down here is pretty damn good too. I don't know if you guys have ever been down south far enough to ever hear of a place called Raising Cane's. But
oh yes, yes, that's in the A tier, baby. That's in the top tier. That's with Cookout and like and Chipotle. That's top notch stuff,
buddy. They do one thing, and that one thing is chicken tenders, and those chicken tenders are absolute A tier, just like Spenny just said, dude.
Yeah, I lived in the South for a little bit. I was more of a Zaxby's guy. I don't remember us having Cane's in South Carolina, but I have heard things. So I guess that's enough picking your brain on food and drink and whatnot and all that other folly. I guess we are here to talk a little bit of go ahead.
But drinks, sorry, I totally forgot to mention. I went down to Bourbon Street for the first time like last month.
Do they have bourbon?
I'd imagine so. Didn't have any bourbon myself. I'm more of a rum kind of guy, if I do say so. But spent the night trying to. I didn't drink as much as I could have because I was too busy taking care of one of my friends who had blacked out, and so I was being the responsible guy that I am and taking care of him. But it's a great atmosphere, fantastic. But I gotta get out there again sometime soon and really put the pedal to the metal there.
I like to think of Bourbon Street as like riding on a motorcycle. Like it's so fun and so cool, and you can like do so many different things you can't normally do. But if you fuck around too much, you will get smited. Like you can go so crazy on Bourbon Street as long as you're not like destructive or violent. You can pretty much do anything that you want. But if you are destructive or violent, you will get smited by the crowd, by like everything around you. It is like such a unique place in that way. People are nuts, but if you there's such a like defined line of lines you don't cross while you're there, or you just like get swallowed alive by the collective there.
So some dude like drunk ragdolled off one of the balconies. It was pretty bad. Oh, he was fine. Dude got up and gave a thumbs up to everybody.
Oh, well, he probably wasn't feeling it in that moment, but he's gonna wake up the next day like not knowing what the hell happened.
Woke up with some stitches in the back of his head, I'm sure. But yeah, it's a great place. Spencer's absolutely right. You gotta find that happy medium with bourbon.
Yeah, I would think there's probably a good Venn diagram of like people listening to this that have been, because of the fact that the Ravens played the Super Bowl down there, which is another kind of connective thread between the Ravens and New Orleans, which is great. I mean, there's the Super Bowl, and who knows what else. But
just like the seafood as well. Like they like to eat a lot of little creepy crawlers out of the ocean. We do too. I don't know. New Orleans has some kind of similarities, some fun ones. And I actually am about to make a real fun one as we segue to Saints Ravens. You're a guy who spent, so many years following kind of John Harbaugh and what was going on there. And now one of the other similar coaches, he's got a bowl. He's been around a long time. He's revered. He's respected, one of the all-time minds. Like, how has the transition been from looking at John Harbaugh under a microscope for so long and now at Sean Payton? Just get us into that nasty, nitty-gritty, the beauty that is Sean Payton.
Sean's a wild man.
He definitely is. And that's one of the things that I've actually, when I got down here, I kind of made that comparison with my colleagues, and like how John Harbaugh is one of those guys that is like, he doesn't really want to be questioned. He knows everything according to John Harbaugh. And he has this kind of like, just like vice grip around his team. And so it's kind of the same way with Sean Payton, where Sean Payton's not just a person, but Sean Payton's also a way of life in the Saints training facility and at the Superdome, which has recently been renamed the Caesars Superdome for those unfamiliar. And so it's just going to be called the Superdome for all intents.
Yeah, I mean, it was Mercedes-Benz before that, but people just call it Superdome, right?
Yeah, the Superdome or the Dome, it doesn't matter. But yeah, it's very similar they're very similar in the ways they speak to the media. They're not too forthcoming, but they give you just enough to keep you asking questions and everything like that. Today's press conference about Michael Thomas, it wasn't about Michael Thomas, but somebody asked a question. because I don't know if you guys saw the cryptic tweets that.
Yeah, what
Michael
the hell is
Thomas
going
is.
on there?
I just saw one that was so good. He basically liked a tweet that said something along the lines of, they asked him not to get surgery so that he could try to win a Super Bowl with Drew Brees, and then now they're mad at him because he's not healthy.
Yeah, but like I see that. I see the cryptic tweets, and then I start reading. I forget who like had like a summary of all the shit that had gone on, but I just am now realizing that there's been like this this whole thing going on between them, and then like of course the great CD Carter tweet about like the quarterback tweet, like love my teammates, offensive line tweet, like whatever, and then wide receiver enemy is like kind but holds a knife behind his back. It always like comes back to that with the wide receivers. But what's the Michael Thomas skinny these days, and what's that whole situation?
See, Michael Thomas, even when I was back up north, has always struck me as kind of an oddball, right? Like he's never really seemed like he's that
he's on a different wavelength.
Yes. Much like his uncle Keyshawn Johnson, he is on a different wavelength. And so from what I understand from everybody down here is that after he got that fat contract a couple of years back, he turned into a different person. So money changes people. We all know that. And so it sounds like he doesn't really have a great relationship, not just with the organization as a whole, but with his teammates in the locker room. I mean, we saw that last year when he got into a fight with CJ Gardner-Johnson, the cornerback, and it's been weird to see this. This has been a whole narrative that's been spun for the last month because everybody found out that he had surgery in June, and everybody thought he was pulling a Scottie Pippen when Scottie Pippen just didn't want to throw his summer away. So he decided to wait and then rehab during the start of the season. So nobody really knows what's going on, but Sean Payton, when asked about it today, he said he didn't want to have a conversation about it and a press conference based on social media. So he's being pretty tight-lipped around it, and it doesn't sound like we're going to get a resolution to this anytime soon. He's still on the PUP list for training camp, and if they don't pull him off, he's out until at least week 7. And are they going to be able to trade him because he seems pretty unlikable right now? And it's just a whole mess, dude.
Right. What is like, and I guess that's like maybe partially answers this question, but what kind of is the vibe around the team right now? You mentioned you've been there a couple months, probably not the full off season, obviously. So like, what from your perspective from getting there has it kind of, there's always kind of a feeling surrounding a franchise and like maybe what their expectations are for a year. Like this is obviously a little bit of a different one for them, having no Drew Brees in the picture for the first time in forever. How would you kind of sum up the vibe around the Saints right now if you had to use a word or two?
I would say prior to today, it was pretty hopeful. But then I know the stuff with Michael Thomas dropped, and then I know you guys saw Will Lutz, former Baltimore Raven great. He has a core muscle injury, and so he had surgery on it today. And now I saw, according to some sources, that core muscle injuries are usually like 8 to 10 weeks. But since he's a kicker, he might be out longer. And the Saints signed Brett Maher today too. So it's Will Lutz, much like Justin Tucker for the Ravens, is probably the most productive member of the New Orleans Saints now that Drew Brees is gone. And so now that the Saints have to rely on either Taysom Hill or Jameis Winston to really drive this team in a direction where they want to go. And you can say, yeah, Alvin Kamara is there, but I think right now Alvin Kamara is only as good as the quarterback play that the Saints are going to have, just because you don't have that guy anymore that can dissect defenses the way Drew Brees did and give Kamara the freedom to do what he has been able to do. Jameis has looked really sharp in practice, and I was at training camp on Friday to see it, and he looks the part. He looks like he can probably throw for 4,000 to 5,000 yards, depending on how many games that the Saints are playing, where they're playing from behind. But it's the offense kind of looks spotty here and there. It's inconsistent, and then the defense has a couple of guys that are going to probably miss the start of the season as well.
And it's just the dichotomy between Jameis and Taysom. And is there any certainty right now into what we're going to see? Like, is there any level of certainty of who's going to be taking the Lions' share of snaps? Like, what is going to go down once the season starts. Like it just feels so kept under wraps right now.
See, and that's the thing. Nobody said anything publicly. Like nobody has come out to say like, hey, you know, I think Jameis has a clear edge over Taysom. And it's probably because Taysom has shown that his ability to run the football it covers up a lot. And so while Sean Payton can fix this offense in a way that makes whoever ends up starting at quarterback successful, I think it's gonna work that way. But I mean, if you look at everybody's individual opinion, I mean, I know all my colleagues, we and myself included, we all think Jameis is going to be the guy because like he has that swagger out there. He's had that swagger ever since he was back in Tampa, and he just and I'm ready for LASIK Jameis, dude. Like
we haven't gotten to see it,
and that's the thing. We're going to see it. If I had to make a guarantee, I think Jameis is the starting quarterback under center for the Saints week 1 against Green Bay. I think he's playing too well. He looks too polished compared to Taysom Hill not to be the starter come week 1.
Clear eyes, full stomachs, eating dubs. Jameis Winston.
Yeah. Yes.
Hate to put you on the spot here, but can I get a stat line prediction for Jameis? Because we discussed privately the possibility of him joining the 40-40 club, which would be quite the accomplishment for him.
Well, you see, I don't have 20/20 vision here, Jake. So I'm gonna say that I don't think he's not gonna throw anywhere close to 30 interceptions this year. I think he's going to be. I think just that verticals offense he was running in Tampa was asking him to throw the ball a lot and kind of put up those 50-50 passes. If there's
his average distance of target was like out of a video game, like how far he was throwing the ball downfield on average.
It's ridiculous. And I mean, I guess you have to do that when you have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and whoever else on Tampa. And so if I had to take a guess, it's just that that's not Sean Payton's MO. Sean Payton's offense is short pass, dump off, fire long when everybody comes up to hit you.
Lull them to sleep and bomb it over their head eventually.
Exactly. And that's the John Harbaugh recipe too. And so it's a very good way to get a few wins, get some stats padded. So if I had to take a wild guess, and again, this goes back to depending on how many play or how many games that they're playing from behind, I gotta say that Jameis probably hits anywhere from 4,000 to 5,000 yards. I'm gonna say maybe he goes for like 30 to 35 touchdowns and maybe 10 to 15 interceptions. I think he's not gonna his decision making is going to be much better this season.
How could it not be after sitting behind Drew Brees and watching him just check down so successfully?
My point exactly. And so if you don't learn anything sitting behind Drew Brees for a year, you got some problems between the ears, kid. So I think it's going to be a good season for Jameis. Now, without Michael Thomas there, who steps up in terms of wide receivers, I really like Marquez Callaway and Deontay Harris. And I've also been lobbying for the Steelers to trade James Washington down here to New Orleans too, because I think he'd be a fantastic addition in replacing the large and slant-oriented Michael Thomas.
So what do we see out of this quarterback group on Saturday night then, I guess, to bring it back to the preseason game? Like, are we going to see anything of Jameis? Is it just going to be a lot of Taysom Hill going up against the Ravens' two-zone defense? What do you think from that regard?
So I'm not entirely sure what's going on with the quarterbacks yet. Sean Payton hasn't announced exactly what he's going to do. The talk that was going around my office earlier was like, well, what we would like to see would be to give Jameis game 1, Taysom game 2. So each of those guys would play a half. And then you would give a guy like Ian Book, the third string quarterback, the rest of the game. And I'm not sure what's going to go on with game 3. You probably benched both of those guys because they've already shown what they needed to show. And in terms of defense, I don't know who you run out there. Do you run out David Onyemata, who's going to miss the first 6 games of the season with a suspension for PEDs? I mean, Marshawn Lattimore, we still don't know what's going on with him yet, whether or not he's going to miss the first 2-3 games due to suspension or not. And Deontay Harris was arrested a few weeks ago as well. So there's a whole lot of unknowns going, even like forget the regular season. There's a lot of unknowns going into this preseason. We don't know what Sean Payton wants to do, what combinations of guys he's going to run out there. The only things that look certain on this team are the offensive line and the safety position. And of course, they brought back Quan Alexander, so you know exactly who you're getting a middle linebacker to between Demario Davis and Quan Alexander.
That offensive line is truly, I don't think people talk about it a tenth as much as they should. It is every bit as good as the Bucs offensive line. It is one of the most talented groups in the entire NFL, like top 3, I would say, like at worst. I just am in awe, especially Cesar Ruiz and Eric McCoy, the way they invested high picks in their interior offensive line. And to me, I mean, I don't know about the depth necessarily. I'm not that deep. They do have former Ravens legend James Hurst, of course, still. But it just feels like that offensive line can carry them regardless of quarterback and regardless of what's going on. So what is kind of the sentiment around how like the level of expectation for the position players given how dominant that offensive line is?
So when healthy, this is obviously one of the best units in the league. And so Ryan Ramczyk obviously got smacked with that massive contract last month, and everybody's been talking about it. You have Andrus Peat coming back from injury this year. You have a lot of guys that are good at playing the roles they're assigned, just like James Hurst. And so it's a great line. And so I'm expecting Jameis Winston or Taysom Hill, whoever does take the job, to take full advantage of that. And then we know this is an offensive line that's better at pass blocking than it is run blocking, but we're going to see out of the backfield Alvin Kamara, of course, obviously. I don't have to tell you guys that we're going to see Alvin Kamara catching a lot of passes this season. It's going to be interesting to see how that unit boosts the rest of the offense, because Jameis Winston can make all the throws. He has the arm talent and he has the ability. He just needs to get everything right, lined up, whatever. If he does, and the offensive line gives him enough time, it doesn't matter who's out there catching the passes. He's going to be able to find the open guy. He has the big enough arm. He's going to be able to put the ball only where his guys can get it, and it's going to be all downhill from there. So the offensive line should pave the way for a lot of success for the offensive season, given they remain healthy.
Who were some of the maybe I should just phrase it like this, like what is the main storyline on the defensive side of the ball to you that you've seen so far?
So up until this past week, they didn't know who was going to be the starting linebacker behind or next to Demario Davis. And so, like I mentioned, they brought back Quan Alexander for another year, who tore his Achilles towards the end of last season. And so it was more of a competition between Zach Bond and Pete Werner. And so there was a lot going on there. So Demario Davis obviously becoming one of the leaders of the team. The fun fact is that the Saints linebackers over the last 3 seasons only have about 4 interceptions in that group. But last season, the Saints as a whole had 18 interceptions and were tied for first in the league. Do with that what you will. A linebacker for the Saints did not have an interception last season. So although they're great at doing what they do, they obviously aren't forcing turnovers. Now that remains with the defensive backs, who had 17 of those 18 interceptions last season. If you're wondering where that one went, it was David Onyemata that had a pick last season. If you guys remember
the big man rumble.
Exactly. Haloti Ngata did it several times with the Ravens. And but it's looking like the secondary is still, the cornerbacks more specifically are the position to watch here. And that's what we got to look at, because they just brought in Paulson Adibi out of the draft. They brought in Brian Poole from the Falcons, or former Falcon, played for the Jets.
Yep.
And so they have C.J. Gardner-Johnson and they have Brian Poole. Marshawn Lattimore, like I mentioned earlier, we don't know if he's going to be able to be there at the start of the season. who is going to play outside and who's going to play the slot? Do you really want to move Gardner Johnson, who was the best slot corner last year, out of the slot spot to go and replace Marshawn Lattimore for God knows however many games? So it's even though they had massive success last season, we don't know if they're going to be able to replicate that this season because there are so many unknowns. You have guys missing on the defensive front. You had their sack leader from last season ending up with the Cincinnati Bengals. And so there are things here that are not the same as they were. So you can't really predict what's going to happen. So I mean, there's a lot of storylines going on with this defense, and it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to predict and pick just one storyline.
The player I'm most excited to see is someone that Jake and I pretty extensively got into the edge group of this draft class, and to me, Payton Turner was someone that the more I watched, the more I absolutely loved him. And I was him, Joe Tryon, Odafe Owe, the Ravens end up with those guys. I was looking at them like, wow, there's some pretty talented guys in the back end there. So what are the early returns on Payton Turner? You've also got a couple other interesting guys. You mentioned Zach Bond. How are those up and coming players, those younger players across the front, those pass rushers, and however they're going to use Zach Bond, yet to be seen, I guess, in full capacity yet. But how are those guys looking through camp? What are the rumors on them? That's who I'm going to be watching for from the Saints in this matchup out of their entire roster, really.
Bond looks like a solid role player. He looks like he's primed to get some time in special teams now that Quan Alexander has usurped his role as the weak side linebacker next to Demario Davis. And so it's looking like that. I love Payton Turner, by the way, but the one thing that's been the knock against Payton Turner this training camp so far is that while he can get to the quarterback, the dude has wheels for no reason. A guy that big should not be able to move that fast. And but the thing is, he has a lot of trouble stopping the run. So while he can get into the backfield, he has trouble setting the edge, which setting the edge is something that we've grown accustomed to in Baltimore from the guys that the Ravens have drafted. We saw for whether you love him or you hate him, Matt Judon was excellent at setting the edge on the Ravens defense. And hopefully Odafe Owe is just as good at doing that. But I think that with enough practice and with enough time in the weight room, Payton Turner is going to be a great force on the edge there. I think he has a lot of potential. Size and speed like that is not going to be wasted on the bench. And we said this about Lamar Jackson years ago. You don't keep a Ferrari in the garage, dude. You let that thing out and you let it run. So I think Payton Turner is going to see a lot of playing time. But Zach Bond, he's going to be a guy that you got to keep an eye out for. He's going to get a ton of playing time in I would say second, third quarter of this preseason game.
So who are some of the characters, the underrated guys near the bottom of the roster that are maybe going to be getting some playing time that maybe you've been impressed by or maybe are generating some headlines as kind of diamonds in the rough that you've seen so far?
So Paulson Adibi is the rookie corner. Supposed
to be a first-round pick like 2 years ago.
Yeah, and so like the whole buzz around him is that he looks like he has all the physical traits to be that guy, but he has yet to put it all together. And so I'm waiting for live action so we can see him like actually play. Like I know it feels like a cop-out answer, but I mean, for a guy that has been as highly touted as Adibi was, you expect more out of him. So I'm sitting on the edge of my seat waiting for him just to take something to the house. And I hope he doesn't do that against the Ravens. I hope the Ravens definitely show out a little bit too. I want this to be a really fun game to watch. But I think Adibi is my pick to really show out because right now, if you're the Saints, you don't want to send Brian Poole out there to play outside corner, man. That's just not a recipe for success. You want a guy like Adibi to be able to go out there,
square peg, round hole, putting Brian Poole out there.
Side note: Brian Poole, Ravens legend. Brian Poole.
Ravens legend. Brian Poole.
Ravens legend.
Yeah, Spenny was dangerously close to breaking him signing with the Ravens based upon a strange burner account that was tweeting something out about that. And, unfortunately, it did not materialize. But whenever I think Brian Poole, I think of the fact that we almost had that.
It wasn't the CJ Golson account again, was it?
No, this was pre CJ Golson. I don't even know what it was to this day, but it was something totally random. But
it was a name that was said more than Beetlejuice in the movie Beetlejuice. Brian Poole.
Oh my God. He just appeared in my apartment. What the hell?
Yeah, but I mean, so for the Saints to have a successful preseason, this is one of the most uncertain years in God knows how long. So for the Saints to have a successful preseason and have good energy ahead of the regular season, what needs to happen between now and, September 14th?
It's just like, I still think they're just like, a quarterback needs to be found out. Like they need to choose their guy, or a guy. Not that they need to. Excuse me. Not that they need.
Do you think they need to
guy.
Commit like early, or do you think they need to like play it off as long as they can?
I don't think commitment is the issue. I think that a guy really needs to. While I see Jameis Winston taking a little bit of a lead over Taysom Hill, there needs to be a giant gap between the quarterbacks for not me, but for media around here, like The Athletic, like anybody else, to really see and believe that he is going to be the guy. Like there can't just be this little gap here. Yeah, exactly. There has to be more faith in the quarterback, and so there hasn't been much yet. Like I like what I see, but then you don't know if the coaches see it, if the local media sees it. So I think that's one of the issues. I think there needs to be a definite guy that is going to go out there and that's going to lead this team to a few wins from under center. And I think that the situation with Mike Thomas needs to get sorted out ASAP, whether or not he's on this team on opening day, whether or not the Saints decide to move on, make a couple of trades before they take the field against the Packers. There needs to be something that gets done here, because right now the attitude in the locker room, the attitude on the practice field, not as good as it can be.
For sure. Well, buddy, I guess before we get you out of here, I mean, this is a really, really super high stakes pick that you're going to have to make here, but we do want to get a prediction for what you think is going to happen on Saturday night between the Ravens and the Saints. I mean, John Harbaugh's undefeated preseason record hangs in the balance here. So
17-0, baby.
Yeah, I'm going to say here, just based on all the uncertainty we see from the Saints in camp. I mean, like, I've seen more certainty from the Ravens in their camp than I've seen from the Saints, and I gotta say that the Ravens are probably going to win this one. I'd say 28-17.
Huge.
I think they're gonna. I think you're gonna see the Saints going for it a lot in the red zone because of their lack of a kicker. But just because it's the preseason, you got nothing to lose. What are you going to kick for, right? So I think we're going to see a lot of the like a little offensive quirks here and there.
All right, Spenny, anything else from you?
I'm just excited. I can't wait. Guys like Chris Westry, guys like James Prochet, all these. It's just going to be so fun to see all these. This is the most anticipated preseason of all time because there's like 2 draft classes of guys who have never played a preseason game. There's a lot of guys that needed preseason games last year that didn't get it. And when they were drafted, part of the plan is, all right, you're going to bring them in April. You're going to get the rookie OTAs, get your full training camp, get your preseason in, get all that good stuff. And you're like trying to project where they'll be in August, knowing that you can get some live bullets against other teams. So I'm just ecstatic to see 2 teams that are chock full of some younger players that need those reps. It's going to be really fun to watch. One of the quarterback controversies, it's like the Saints, the Broncos, it doesn't feel like there's a ton of them in the NFL right now. It feels like a lot of teams have their guy, generally speaking. So it's going to be fun to see the Ravens kind of have an opponent that really needs 2 quarterbacks to play for a starting job and how they're able to get it done. So I think it's going to be a really exciting game. Don't get to see the Saints very often. I mean, last time Saints were in Baltimore was that insane Justin Tucker miss. Extra point at the end. Joe Flacco throws a touchdown to Mike Wallace?
John Brown.
No, John Brown.
John Brown. Hits him. Is that where Flacco hit the whatever the hell it used to be called? That
celebration. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the game was literally lost And like I remember sitting there on my phone just scrolling because I was like, oh yeah, it's over. And then Flacco just out of nowhere marches them down the field in like 10 seconds and hits John Brown. I'm like, okay, maybe.
Well, if you guys realize this, that means the Ravens are coming down here next year.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll be coming.
Oh, we'll be
eating gumbo.
I'm
a gumbo boy.
I'm a gumbo boy. I'm a jambalaya
Shrimp.
boy. I'm a turnip stew boy. These are all favorites in my household growing up.
I'll tell you what, fellas, when you guys come down here to check out that game, first round's on me.
Well,
Let's do it.
Like I said, I'll be down this fall, so hopefully we can meet up for a beer.
Absolutely.
At some point then. But all right, buddy, before we get you out of here, how about you go ahead and plug your social media, all your work to the fans of ours that don't already know you. I assume many of them do, but go ahead and do it.
Sure. You guys can find all my work. Well, I help produce the Fox 8 Overtime podcast. You guys can go to Fox 8 NOLA and check all that out. I'm the producer here in New Orleans at Fox 8. You can see all my work on Fox 8. You see all the production and all that good stuff. But yeah, man, that's you can find me on Twitter at Vasilios TV, and that's you see all my thoughts on the Saints, Ravens, whatever else you want to see me talk about. Pelicans has been pretty popular recently too. So.
Yeah, it must be nice moving to an NBA town.
It's weird, man.
With no baseball, with no MLB team too.
Yeah, no. Instead of an awful MLB team, we have an awful NBA team now.
Hey, well, get Zion into the mix there and start letting him cook. But
Absolutely.
I don't know. Yeah, until then, we really appreciate you hopping on with us, buddy. Hopefully we'll talk soon. I'm sure we will. And you be good while you're down there, okay?
Thank you, fellas. It's been great.
Bye.
Gorlami. Arrivederci.
Arrivederci.
Arrivederci.